Now it's time to conquer one of my favorite types of projects, and that's an editorial design layout. We're going to do an editorial layout, and also as a bonus, we're going to be doing the front cover of a magazine. So when it comes to proper layout design, there's a lot of things to think about, and we're going to go through those things as we work through this project together. So this is the article we're going to be creating. We're going to do kind of a left photo, introduction to the article, and then a right 2-column layout with kind of a small article that'll spill over to another page. So we're going to go ahead and get these photos available. I have them, you can download them in the resource guide, but if you cannot find those photos or you want to try something different, this is an intermediate level project. I encourage you to find your own or write your own article and kind of do your own layout with different photos using this as a guide. But if you want to follow along with this exact project, you can download the photos. So let me go ahead and download all of these we need. We're going to start from scratch. I actually did some editing on each of the ones you see here, and we're going to get this copy as well. So let's start with a fresh new document. I am here in Adobe InDesign. This is our first project in InDesign, and I just created a new document, and this is going to be, I switched it down to inches. It's just a standard 8.5 by 11 for now. We don't have the final magazine size, but we're going to do it 8.5 by 11, which is fairly standard. In the American magazine industry, of course, in Europe, they have taller sizes, a little more slender. So you might just need to make some adjustments depending on where you live. I did, you could do 6 pages. We're just going to do a front cover and 1 spread. So as long as you have 3 or more pages, we will have what we need. Make sure that facing pages is selected because we are going to do a front cover and we want to have a spread. So we want to have facing pages selected. And with margins, default margins are, I believe, 1/2 inch, but I like to reduce my margins to 1/4 inch because I feel like they're a little bit too big by default and I want to have some margins I really want to stick by. So I'm just reducing it to 0.25 inches all the way around, or about half what the original size is if you're working with other sizes. And of course we want to have a bleed, so I added an 1/8 of an inch bleed all around, which is very standard in the magazine industry, and I created a document. So here we are. Let's get started. So we're going to do what's called blocking. So we're going to block out basic elements, knowing what we need to have on the page. So we know we have an article that's going to be about 2 columns, maybe 300 words or so. Nothing really too lengthy, but we need to have an area for a block of copy, an area for a headline, and maybe an area for a quote. So let's block it out. I'm just going to grab the rectangle tool, and I'm going to go over, and this is a newer version of Adobe InDesign. So I have a properties panel. If you don't see a properties panel, it means you probably have an older version, and that's okay because you'll be able to access all of this in different windows. If you go up to window, you can call out all of them. What they did is they combined about 5 different main panels into one panel in the newest version. So if you see something different, don't panic. You'll still be able to access everything I'm accessing right here in the properties panel. So for now, I'm just going to select a light gray just for blocking and getting that rectangle tool and just kind of figuring out where my photo is going to go. So when it comes to layout design, sometimes it's nice to push things over to other panels, especially when you're doing spreads. It's kind of nice to be able to push the envelope. We can have it go across the page just a little bit. I think it just connects those 2 pages better. You could even have kind of some circles here and cut it out. You can make any kind of frame for your photo, but we're going to kind of just have it spill over to the other page just a little bit, so it gives our photo a lot of attention because we're also going to put our title there as well. So let's go ahead and create our blocks of type. I just have the type tool, and if we ever need to fill our type with information instead of having to go to the internet and find random information, I'm just going to go up to type, fill with placeholder text. So it's just going to automatically fill with a bunch of text so I don't have to mess with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this over to make a second column. I'll kind of show you how to do this. This is an intermediate level lesson, so hopefully you have a little bit of experience in Adobe Illustrator, but for those who are still struggling a little bit, sometimes when you collapse a text box and there's extra text that's still there, that would be there if you uncollapsed it, there's this little plus sign icon. I'm going to click on that, and any spillover type can be put in a separate box. So we're just doing that. We're just creating 2 columns. And what I like to do is finesse our type a little bit. So let me copy and paste We need a little more length here to our article. This is just gobbledygook. It's not a real article. So you can always collapse and they're all connected. So whenever I collapse this, all that extra type will spill over to the other paragraph. So they're all connected. It's very nice when you're doing multiple page layouts. Okay, so I'm going to make sure these are the same column length. So I'm just making sure they're the same length and they have some nice spacing. So I want to make sure the spacing on the left and the right are the same. What I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle, I'm just going to press the letter key W. So I'm just pressing W and I'm toggling on my margins, and my bleed is all going to be there. So you can now see my bleed and you can see my margins. So I'm just going to make sure I'm just using that as a guide, and you toggle it off and on. I do that a lot when I'm doing layout design, just toggling that on, because sometimes it could be distracting, the lines, when you really want to kind of assess what it looks like. So with columns, so one thing I want to do is I want to go over to my properties panel and I want to select my type, and I have some new options that automatically appear in my properties panel. I'd like to do a left justification with last line aligned left. So you have all these different paragraph options. We could do center, left, right. What I love is a flushed look on the left and right side. And we did this in the previous book project. Right here, justify with last line aligned left. I think that just looks very editorial, very professional to have that right side be nice and even. And also with hyphens, I'm not a huge fan of hyphens. I like hyphens when you have a very tight column. So if you had a very tight column like that, I think hyphens are necessary, or you get too much spacing between the words. But with a normal width column, I like to uncheck hyphens if possible. So I'm going to select my type and go down to hyphenate. Just going to unclick hyphenate. It just looks a little better without all those hyphens. So I'm toggling W again to kind of see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and add a title. This will not necessarily be, this will be a title for this page, but there'll be a main article title to the left over the photo. But this is just kind of something to help introduce. You never want to just have type, you never want to have a paragraph floating by itself. You always want to have a header for everything, or a subtitle. So I guess this would really kind of be a subtitle, and the main title would be here. So we could do sub. So its subtitle will be there, and then type here. You never want to leave body copy hanging out without any kind of anchor or any kind of headline or guide. So this will be a guiding line to help you get started with reading that type. And also what I like to do when I have longer type, and let's add a couple more paragraphs to this. So a lot of times what I like to do is break up two longer columns, and this isn't too long, with a quote. Because right now you have two blocks of copy. There's nothing that's breaking this big large block of copy up. So it's not making it very enticing for me to read. But if we were to isolate a little something, so maybe a little quote about this length. So I'm just copying and pasting into a new, and we made it a little bit bigger. So let's make it our 18 size. And I might have to adjust the columns here. Need to find a good spacing right in the middle to put our quote. And so I can make manual spacing there and drag it here, or I could do a text wrap. And I'm going to go here to the leading down here, and I'm just kind of collapsing the spacing a little bit because I don't like super duper wide spacing between my lines unless it's intentional. So there's a nice tighter look, and let's maybe make it a tiny bit smaller. Let's see how 16 looks. Maybe 15. I want to have it on 3 lines. There we go. So there's our little quote. So we can make the manual spacing there, which can kind of be frustrating when you have to move it around. Or we could do a text wrap, and anytime we drag this in, it'll automatically add the spacing. So to add a text wrap, I'm going to go here to my text wrap panel. If you don't see this in your panel system, you can go up and call it out up here. So I have my text wrap. I'm going to put on a wraparound object shape. So anytime I drag this in, it's going to wrap around just like that. So now this makes it a lot easier to add quotes because I can shift this around and it automatically adds spacing, which is kind of neat. So I just did a text wrap. And I want to make sure that it matches the same size. So we can finesse the type choice and all of that a little bit later in this process. But just want to find a good place for a quote. So that'll be our pull quote, subtitle. We have our photo. I thought, since this is a white background, I thought let's find some photography that's flat lay, which is a top-down view. And I'll show you what that looks like. So it looks like we have food resting here, and we maybe have an item down here to kind of really fill in the top parts and help to tell the story of the main photo. So right now we're going to have a photo of, this is going to be about pancakes. So I found a perfect photo of someone pouring honey over pancakes. It's very mouth-watering. It's well edited. It's a great photo, a really great drawing in your eye photo. So we're going to put that here on the left. And what I want to do is I want to tell a story and help complement the photo with the secondary photos. So we want to have one main focal point. That'll be the photo and the title. And the other photos will play second fiddle. They will not be main primary. They will help boost the story that the main photo is telling. So let's think about a title here. How to make the perfect pancake. So we're going to break this down. And then perfect pancake I thought would be a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to put that on a separate line. Perfect. So we have our little title. We're not going to be able to do much with the title until we find the photo and incorporate that in there. So there's our basic blocking. We can toggle on W, make sure everything looks okay. There's not a ton of type that's going to go on here. We also want to make sure we have a page number. So let's make that a little bit smaller. We don't want to have a super large page number. And put that on the bottom. We could toggle on W. This is why I love margins. I'm just going to double click that bottom corner and it's going to adapt it to the size. And I'm just shifting it to that bottom right corner of the margin. Kind of helps guide me. So we have page numbers. So I'm trying to think of any other type that'll need to go on here. This is probably going to be it. So let's go ahead and get our photos loaded in here and we can really start to finesse this layout.